So I'm at the Civil Society Forum before the FDD conference, and what I heard so far, I think, are three. Well, first, the overarching concern, I think, for civil society at this point is the low ambition that we're walking into the conference with. So the watering down of the negotiated text, and there were many examples shared yesterday in the deliberations on how text that is important, we think, for the world, but definitely important for civil society, has been gradually either watered down or taken out completely from the text on some key issues that I'll talk about in a minute. So that's the I think overwhelming concern is that we're walking in at a very low point as far as ambition is concerned. The positive or the silver lining on that is that civil society feels that there's an opportunity to raise that ambition, or at least that it's our call to go into the conference and to collectively push to raise ambition. So that is a very, I think, mobilizing mandate that we're giving ourselves, and it helps to energize and give us focus as a group as to what we want to do. So I think ultimately what we're hoping to do during the conference is to help by engaging with our different government delegations, with the UN, etc., to really raise the level of ambition. Now, more specifically, there are, I think, three takeaways for me so far in the conversation of top priorities for civil society. As you know, for civil society, and definitely the civil society represented here, has a whole range of diverse concerns and issues that we work on. So it's always challenging to try to put our finger on, okay, what are the top priorities that really will make this conference a success or a failure. And I think there are three that are coming out quite strongly. We're still in the process of discussing, but what I've heard so far, first of all, is around a global tax body, so an intergovernmental global tax body, the establishment of this to bring back the language and this point on the agenda. Again, this is something that from Monterrey to Doha has been taken out and watered down, but we feel it's important to put it back at the top of the agenda. We feel that this just needs to happen. There is, we know, a whole discussion about whether taxing is a technical issue or it's a political issue. It's both, we think, and in order to speak to the political elements and the policy elements of global taxation coherence, we need to have a global body. So I think that's the first strong priority that is coming out, and it impacts. We were at a session on gender justice, financing women's equality, and that came up repeatedly of how it's important for women and for the capacity of women to continue progressing in developing countries that we have, that we circumvent many of the problems that we're seeing in the current tax regimes and practices. So that's the first key point. The second point that has come out very strongly is the need to have rigorous follow-up to this conference. I think right now the text says something extremely vague, like, we will consider maybe perhaps doing follow-up, and that is unacceptable from a civil society perspective. It's weaker than the follow-up commitments that have existed in the past, and we've seen how difficult it has been. It has been, even with stronger language, to have significant and meaningful follow-up. So I think for civil society that is the second really important priority, that the text and the commitment, more importantly, around doing rigorous, serious follow-up of designating the right UN bodies to be tasked with ensuring that follow-up is done is really, really important. So that's the second point, and again, that affects the overall ambition and commitment levels for the whatever comes out of Addis. So the third point, also cross-cutting. I mean, we heard it in the different conversations when we were talking about taxation. We talked a lot about the role of the private sector, private investment, and how that's being managed. Gender, it came out a lot as well. A lot of concerns around the impact of the privatization of development financing and the impact that it has on women. So in the discussion around private financing and specifically around public-private partnerships, huge concerns from civil society on this at many levels, but what it boils down to, I think, as an ask from civil society, as a priority, is the need to have transparency and accountability. This also has been watered down in the last version of the negotiated text, and we feel as a society that it's hugely important, especially given the emphasis that private financing is being given in this whole process by donor countries and by countries in general, that it's extremely important that that be accompanied by an equally strong emphasis on the need to make sure that there are accountability mechanisms and a framework for reporting, monitoring that is transparent in order to try to ensure that the standards that the private sector financing is held up to actually guarantee some development outcomes. So this is, I would say, a very, very strong felt concern that if there is no such mechanism of transparent accountability, we might be doing more damage than good by encouraging and pushing private finance to the top of the agenda. So those are the three priorities that I've heard so far. So as far as Canada, since I'm Canadian and I'm with the Canadian Council for International Cooperation, what is our priority vis-a-vis our government during this negotiation? Canada is one of the countries that's championing the private sector involvement and private sector financing, blended financing, innovative financing, etc. It's a top priority for the Canadian government and has been for a while now. So for civil society in Canada, our huge challenge is to engage with our government to bring together another priority of the government, which is transparency and accountability, and hopefully get them to see and to agree with us that these two things need to go together, so that if our government is going to be such a champion for private sector financing and for new innovative mechanisms which include the private sector, then they also are well positioned in theory to bring that other priority, which is around accountability and transparency, not only accountability and transparency for recipient countries, not only accountability and transparency for civil society, but very much accountability and transparency for the private sector. So it's a process that it's a huge challenge, but I personally think that there is a logic that I'm hoping we can share with our government, which is that these are two Canadian priorities. Why don't we bring them together and really show some leadership, some true leadership in this whole private financing realm of perhaps being one of the first countries to actually say, yes, we believe that private financing is part of the solution, but we are going to commit ourselves to helping the world put together mechanisms for accountability that are rigorous and robust. It would be wonderful if Canada could do something like that. So it's a huge challenge. We have by no means won that battle, but it's what I hope, a conversation that I hope we can have with our government, especially over the next week.